Hello everyone, welcome to Mr.English channel. I'm sure that after listening to several podcasts from this channel, your listening skills will improve. In this video and the following videos, I will tell you the story of Gulliver's travels. So, stay with me. Let's start it. Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. The author of these travels, Mr. Lemuel Gulliver, is my ancient and intimate friend. There is likewise some relation between us on the mother's side. About 3 years ago, Mr. Gulliver, growing weary of the concourse of curious people coming to him at his house in Redriff, made a small purchase of land with a convenient house near work in Nottinghamshire, his native country, where he now lives retired, yet in good esteem among his neighbours, although Mr. Gulliver was born in Nottinghamshire, where his father dwelt, yet I have heard him say his family came from Oxfordshire, to confirm which I have observed in the churchyard at Bunbury in the country several tombs and monuments of the Gullivers. Before he quitted Redriff, he left the custody of the following papers in my hand, with the liberty to dispose of them as I should think fit. I have carefully pursued them 3 times. The style is very plain and simple, and the only fault I find is that the author, after the manner of travelers, is a little too circumstantial. There is an air of truth apparent through the whole, and indeed the author was so distinguished for his veracity that it became a sort of proverb among his neighbors at Redriff. When any one affirmed a thing to say, it was true as if Mr. Gulliver had spoken it. By the advice of several worthy persons to whom, with the author's permission, I communicated these papers, I now venture to send them into the world, hoping they may be, at least for some time, a better entertainment to our young noblemen than the common scribbles of politics and party. This volume would have been at least twice as large if I had not made bold to strike out innumerable passages relating to the winds and tides, as well as to the variations and bearings in the several voyages, together with the minute descriptions of the management of the ship in storms in the style of sailors. Likewise, the account of longitudes and latitudes, wherein I have reason to apprehend that Master Gulliver may be a little dissatisfied, but I was resolved to fit the work so much as possible to the general capacity of readers. However, if my own ignorance in sea affairs shall have led me to commit some mistakes, I alone am answerable for them. And if any traveler had a curiosity to see the whole work at large as it came from the hands of the author, I will be ready to gratify him. As for any further particulars relating to the author, the reader will receive satisfaction from the first pages of the book. Richard Simpson, a letter from Captain Gulliver to his cousin Simpson, written in the year 1727. I hope you will be ready to own publicly whenever you shall be called to it, that by your great and frequent urgency you prevailed on me to publish a very loose and incorrect account of my travels, with the directions to hire some gentleman of either university to put them in order and correct the style as my cousin Dampier did, by my advice, in his book called A Voyage Round the World. But I don't remember I gave you power to consent that anything should be omitted, and much less than anything should be inserted. Therefore, as to the latter, I do here renounce everything of that kind, particularly a paragraph about Her Majesty Queen Anne of most pious and glorious memory, although I did reverence and esteem her more than any of human spices. But you, or your interpolator, ought to have considered that it was not my inclination. So, was it not decent to praise any animal of our composition before my master Hyonomelium? And, besides, the fact was altogether false. For to my acknowledge being in England during some part of Her Majesty's reign, she did govern by a chef minister, nay, even by two successively, the first whereof was the Lord of Goldfin, and the second the Lord of Oxford, so that you have made me say to think that was not. Likewise, in the account of the company projectors and several passages of my discourse to my master Hermelium, you have either omitted some material circumstances or minced or changed them in such a manner that I do hardly know my own work. When I formally hinted to you something of this in a letter, you were pleased to answer that you were afraid of giving offense. That people in power were very watchful over the press and apt not only to interpret but to punish everything which looked like an innuendo, as I think you call it. But pray how could that which I spoke so many years ago, and at about 5,000 leagues distance in another region, be applied to any of the yahoos who now are said to govern the herd, especially at a time when I little thought or feared the unhappiness of living under them? Have not I most reason to complain when I see these very yahoos carried by Hunium in a vehicle, as if they were brutes, and those rational creatures? And indeed, to avoid so monstrous and distastable a sight was one principal motive of my retirement hither. Thus much I thought proper to tell you in relation to yourself, and to the trust I respond in you. I do in the next place complain of my own great want of judgment, in being prevailed upon by the entreaties and false reasoning of you and some others, very much against my own opinion, to suffer my travels to be published. Pray bring to your mind how often I desired you to consider, when you insisted on the motive of public good, that the Yahoos were a species of animals utterly incapable of amendment by the percept or example, and so it has proved. For instead of seeing a full stop pool to all abuses and corruptions, at least in this little island, as I had reason to expect, behold, after about 6 months' warning, I cannot learn that my book has produced one single effect according to my intentions. I desired you would let me know by a letter when party and faction were extinguished, judges learned and upright, pilgers honest and modest, with some tincture of common senses, and Smithfield blazing with permits of law books. The young nobility's education entirely changed. The physicians banished, the female yahoos abounding in virtue, honor, truth, and good sense. Courts and levies of great ministers thoroughly swept, with merit and learning rewarded, all disgracers of press in prose and verse commanded to eat nothing but their own cotton, and quench their thirst with their own ink. These and a thousand other reformations I firmly counted upon by your encouragement, as indeed they were plainly deducible from the precepts delivered in my book, and it must be owned that 7 months were a sufficient time to correct every vice and folly to which yahoos are subject if their natures had been capable of the least dispositions to virtue or wisdom. Yet, so far have you been from answering my expectations in any of your letters, that on contrary you are loading your carrier every week with libels and kins and inflections and memorizing second parts, wherein I see myself accused of reflecting upon great state folk, of degrading human nature, for so they have still the confidence to style it, and of abusing the female sex. I find likewise the writers of those bundles are not agreed among themselves, for some of them will not allow me to be author of my own travels, and others make me author to books to which I am wholly a stranger. I find likewise that your printer has been so careless as to confound the times. and mistakes the dates of my several voyages and returns, neither assigning the true year or the truth of month nor day of the month, and I hear the original manuscript is all destroyed since the publication of my book. Neither have I any copy left. However, I have sent you some corrections, which you may insert if ever there should be a second edition, and yet I cannot stand to them, but shall leave the matter to my judicious and candid readers to adjust it as they please. I hear some of our sea yahoos find fault with my sea language as not proper in many parts, nor now in use. I cannot help it. In my first voyage, while I was young, I was instructed by the oldest mariners and learned to speak as they did. But I have since found that the sea yahoos are apt, like the land ones, to become newfangled in their words, which the latter change every year, in so much as I remember upon each return to my own country their old dialect was so Gulliver's travels altered that I could hardly understand the new. And I observed when any Yahoo comes from London out of curiosity to visit me at my house, we neither of us are able to deliver our conceptions in a manner intelligible to the other. If the censure of the Yahoos could any way affect me, I should have great reasons to complain that some of them are so bold as to think my book of travels a mere fiction of outmind was brain, and have gone so far as to drop hints that the Hunyms and the Yahoos have no more existence than the inhabitants of Utopia. Indeed, I must confess that, as to the people of Lilliput, bird raging, for as the word should have been spelled and not erroneously Broad-Dingang, and Laputa, I have never yet heard of any Yahoo so presumptuous as to despite their being, or the facts I have related concerning them, because the truth immediately strikes every reader with conviction. And is there less probability in my account of Humes or Yahoos, when it is manifest as to the latter there are so many thousands even in this country who only differ from their brothers brutes in Huniment, because they use a sort of jabber, and do not go naked? I wrote for their amendment, and not their approbation. The united praise of the whole race would be less consequent to me than the neighing of those two degenerate Hunists I keep in my stable, because from these denegres, as there are still, I prove in some virtues without any mixture of voice. Do these miserable animals presume to think that I am so degenerated as to defend my veracity? Yahoo, as it is well known through all Humiland that by the instructions and example of illustrious master I was able to compass of 2 years, although I confess with almost difficulty, to remove that infernal habit of lying, shuffling, deceiving, and equivocating so deeply rooted in very souls of all spices, especially the Europeans. I have other complaints to make upon these vexatious occasions, but I forbear troubling myself or rear any further. I must freely confess that since my last return some corruptions of my Yahoo nature have revived in me by conversing with a few of your spices, and particularly those of my own family, by an unavoidable necessity. Else I should never have attempted so absurd a project as that of reforming the Yahoo race in this kingdom. But I have now done with all such visionary schemes forever. Dear friends, wait for the next part of this story. Thank you so much for watching this far into the video. Remember to subscribe to the Mr. English channel and hit the bell icon to be notified when I post new videos.